You're tuned in to the Mind of an Entrepreneur show with your host, myself, Sajda Wendy Muhammad. I am a multi-million-dollar business developer. I have developed business and real estate around the world, and I want to share with you my mental strategies, my technical strategies, and how I made it in the world of business. So I don't teach theory. I tell you about my life and introduce you to people who can also share with you what they've done to become successful. This is a practical show. This ain't a theory show. You don't want to miss it. So stay tuned.
O Allah, guide me among those whom Thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom Thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom Thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever Thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what Thou hast judged. Surely Thou judgest, and none can judge against Thee, and he whom Thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art Thou, O Lord, and exalted be Thee above what they set up besides Thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides Thee, and I bear witness that Muhammad is Thy servant and apostle. Amen.
Peace and blessings, family. You're tuned in to the Mind of an Entrepreneur show, and I'm your host, Sajda Wendy Muhammad. I just got off the Mandine Muhammad show, and we were talking about Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church. That's how you got to say it, Missionary Baptist Church. And so I just want to talk about that today. I got a few updates of some of the things that's going on with me. So I just came on casual, thought I'd join you all. I'm excited. Did I tell y'all I lost 9 pounds? Come on now. Okay. So give me a few minutes, get myself together. I'm going to show a few commercials, and I'll come back on the other side and we'll talk about these updates I got for y'all. We're back and you're tuned into the Mind of an Entrepreneur show. I am your host, Sajda Wendy Muhammad. So welcome today. I'm I'm excited to be here. Allah has blessed us with a good week over here in these parts of the woods. Um, Still got our daily challenges and working on a lot of things. You all see scrolling across the bottom, we're still looking to raise money. We got to get the completed Honorable Elijah Muhammad House done. So we got to get started because we want to be done by February. So we ask that you all go out and donate. You can Cash App donate by going to $Mo Today. That's going across the bottom, MOETODAY. You can get a commemorative Elijah coin by going to sajdahouse.com, or we have sponsorship opportunities. And if you send me an email, let me type that so that you guys can see it, sajdahouse@gmail.com. Just put sponsorship in the sponsorship opportunity in the subject line, and we'll get you a sponsorship deck. And I'll even come out and either do a presentation for you in person, or I can do it via Zoom, or however you want to do it. But just to show you some of the great opportunities. So let me tell y'all this story, because Allah is always. They reminded me on the Brother Mandine show a few minutes ago how back in February when something came to me, I just said, Allah, what are you up to? Look at how you put this together. So let me go back first to bring it forward. So in the late 90s or early 2000s, I don't remember the exact date, but I know it was right before Reverend Dr. Lewis Rawls passed away. I had decided that I wanted to start my own consulting business, right? And I needed an office because I was bidding on projects and things like that through the Chicago Housing Authority. And so I needed an office because a lot of times I need a place for people to come and meet with me. And and I happen to mention this very casually, and Brother Louis Farrakhan Jr. and his then wife, Sister Liesel, they gave me an office inside of their travel agency, Windows to the World, in the Pioneer Building. So the Nation of Islam's business administrative building. It's torn, it's demolished now, but inside the Pioneer Building. So that gave me an address and a place in which I could meet with people. I met with somebody who was working at the time with the Chicago Housing Authority, and I told them that my background was in auditing and accounting, right? And so they said, well, can you help people prepare for HUD audits? And I said, yeah, I can write an audit program and go in and do audit prep work. And so they referred me to the Willa Rawls Manor. And so I went over there and I met with Reverend Dr. Lewis Rawls. This was literally, I want to say maybe a couple years before he passed. And so I met with him and I was so nervous and so green. I didn't know what to charge. I didn't know how to talk about it. And he said, well, I think he asked me, how much is it? And I didn't even know what to say. I hadn't even planned on it. I didn't have no contract, nothing. And then he said, how about $1,400? And that was a lot of money back then. And I was like, yeah. So I went home, wrote up the audit program. That was my very first project. And it really gave me the confidence because I was nervous about it, right? So that's why I always say, do something nice for somebody and support somebody. I always say that certainty is worth more than gold. So Louis and Liesel giving me the office space and Reverend Rawls telling me that I could be, I could do the audit prep work for the Willa Rawls Manor. And it gave me so much certainty. And then that certainty gave me the courage to go on and bid on other projects and do more. So here we go. Fast forward, Savior's Day, February. Right before, Sister Liesel calls me. Remember, her and her husband are one who gave me the office so I could do this work. And she said, I want to help out with the tours for Sajda House. Well, of course, we always looking for some good volunteers. So she came, volunteered. We, chit-chatted, reminisced. At the end of the tours, two members of Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church, which is Dr. Reverend Lewis Rawls' church, came to the gate. And I was like dead dog tired. I think I had done like 4 or 5 tours that day, and we were up and down. It was a lot. And so she said, I need to talk to you. I need your help. And so I said, I gave her my number, and I just said, I was overwhelmed at the time. But Reverend Lewis Rawls stuck in my head because I remember her giving, I think she may have gave it to student minister Abdul Salam, the history of how Reverend Lewis Rawls and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad were neighbors, right? Their homes shared a driveway. So 4847 South Woodlawn, which is now the Elijah Muhammad House or Sajda House, and 4855 South Woodlawn, which is now the Palace, shared one driveway, and 4855 at that time was owned by Reverend Dr. Lewis Rawls. So apparently, Reverend Dr. Lewis Rawls was talking to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad across the gate. I actually met a couple of brothers who said that they would just get in the car and ride around and talk about the stuff they wanted to do on the South Side and just really the plight of the people. And, so many people looked up and honored the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And that's why I cannot wait to complete this history so you all can see how rich and wealthy the knowledge that came from him is, and how many iconic people came to really just drink in his knowledge. I mean, it's just incredible. And the more I get into this, the more I study it, the more I love him so much more, so much deeper, and just respect him. And I'm so grateful for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for introducing us to him. So anyway, that's my side note. Back to the story. So the way the story was told was that Reverend Rawls was talking to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad about, I guess, something he wanted to do, and that he was considering selling his house and the land. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, well, how much do you want for it? He gave him a price, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad went in the house at 4847, put the amount of money in a brown paper bag and handed it to him over the gate, and then later demolished that home and built the palace that still stands today. I know that at one point I had also learned that Reverend Rawls actually stayed with Mother Clara and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad at a certain point. It just was, I don't know, it just was kind of all coming together, right? So I'm inside the house there with Liesl, who gave me my first office, and I was just thanking her. Her and Louis just kind of always like the big brother and sister who would look out for us back in the day. So grateful for that. Sherry's at the gate. She's a member of Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church, saying that she needs to speak to me. I then decided that I was going to start a new arm to my consulting business. So really like a new business. And I wanted to be in the space of preservation consulting, right? So kind of like being the Ben Crump of the consulting world, right? So when people are looking to preserve these properties, helping them to pull together the necessary resources so that they can get these properties preserved. And the more museums and stuff that there are, I think the better. So I decided that I was going to do that. So I laid out my mission statement, did the outline, and then I met with one of our pioneering brothers who gave me some photos. And in those photos are some pictures of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and many of the other young members in the late 50s and 1950s. And I said, well, where is this picture taken? He said, Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church. He said, we used to have Savior's Days there. So this is just this theme, right? This is why I say Allah is something. So this theme's going. I talked to Sherry like 2 days after getting that picture, and she asked me if I would help them to save the church and to preserve the legacy of Reverend Dr. Lewis Rawls. And so then we started unraveling and learning so much about what happened there, like the Joe Louis Milk Fund being started there, which was the precursor to the United Negro College Fund, and Operation Breadbasket starting there, Mother Dorothy Tillman coming up out of that church, Sister Natalie Cole and her sister and auntie going to that church, Sam Cooke, and also Sam Cooke was eulogized there. Of course, his adopted son, Lou Rawls, who is the Grammy Award-winning singer, the Impressions, and Curtis Mayfield. I love me some Curtis Mayfield. So I was excited about that. Jerry Butler, the great Jerry Butler. And man, the list just goes on and on. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King spoke there 3 times. And even President Jimmy Carter was there at that church. And Reverend Lewis Rawls was really a trendsetter and a nation builder. He was a race man. He was all about the community and his people, and he really built this church of love. He and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did so many interfaith meetings and events and dinners together. It's just, it's just some incredible history. And so how appropriate is it that my first project with the new company is the same as my first project for my original company? So Reverend Rawls gave me my first project as an independent consultant in the late 90s or early 2000s. And then here we are, the first project from this new company, preserving his legacy. So just incredible history. Before I move on, I want to read something to you about history, because you're going to be hearing a lot about our history and how important it is. And it's really something that Allah is guiding me to. This is from 1984. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, a lecture that he did at the Final Call building called Turn Back to the Light. And it's a few words. I have like a page and a half written, but I wrote this out because it just was resonating with my spirit in terms of how Allah is guiding me in this preservation space. So before I tell you that, so after I met with Sherry, she told me that she saw a dumpster outside the church and things being taken out and the windows being boarded up. And so I started pulling together resources just to see what we could do to help. I knew that their resources were limited, so we kind of had to regroup and re-strategize and get to another space to figure out how to help them to preserve their legacy. We're still unraveling it. We still don't know who the ownership of the church is. We're working on getting some attorneys to help the congregation members to unravel all of this stuff. I'm going to be working with Preservation Chicago and our Coalition of Black House Museums, which I'm a founding member of, to achieve landmark status and just kind of rally the troops around that. And I know you all probably remember how we started the Coalition of Black House Museums. So it's just a lot. And so now I can add to my list of things is I'm an urban historic preservationist, and I do preservation consulting. So if you've got a property out there that you want help with preserving, give me a call. We'll figure out how we can work with you on it. If it's something that we know we can work towards and maybe be successful, then we'll take it and see what we can do to to assist you. This work is a lot of work. It's not cheap and it's not free. So we need you all to come with some donations and a check or something. And with anything that I do with my portfolio of business, we did this with the hospital. Obviously, there's always some that you can take pro bono, but you can't take everything, pro bono. So, but reach out. You can get me at sajdahouse@gmail.com. So anyway, let me read this. 1984, Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, final call administration building. The lecture is called Turn Back to the Light. I'm going to read a little excerpt that I wrote out from it. And this is going to just kind of close out this segment on preservation. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, this is the minister talking. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who is, in my judgment, is the master historian, taught us that of all our studies, history is the most attractive and it is best qualified to reward the researcher. History is most attractive. Why should history be most attractive? Because history is the recorded time of the human family in its struggle to overcome obstacles. There is no life that is without struggle. The Holy Quran teaches us that man, meaning man and woman, is made to face difficulties. And after difficulties come ease. But it is history that guides us through difficulty. For if you know how people who had difficulty yesterday got through, and if your difficulty is somewhat similar to theirs, then we also can get through if we follow the guidance of history. This is why Carter G. Woodson and many of our Black giants fought for Black people to know our history, because in not knowing our history, we don't have a guide. And without a guide, we are lost. No wonder the Bible refers to us as lost sheep. Lost because we don't have a guide. We don't have a guide because we are not acquainted with our history. Now, it would have been real easy for me to just play that. But I find it important that reciting the words of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, reciting those words is it's like it gives you an energy, it gives you a lift. You can listen to it because listening does something else to your senses, but sometimes I like to write down little pieces of it and just recite it to myself and let it just settle in my heart. So anyway, support me in these preservation efforts. We are now just in the fact-finding awareness phase with the Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church. You all know with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad House, we are raising these final funds. So those of you out there who know some big ballers that got some big checks, go get them big sponsorships for us and come back and get your name written in the house. We're almost there. And so we just have to keep going and just continue. And if you got some history you want us to preserve, let me say this also before I move off that subject. Many of you know about the Great Migration, which took place from about 1919 to about 1975. It's the largest exodus of people from one location to another. In our case, it was us coming from the South and moving up north. When we got up north, in most cases, we were redlined. So they had restricted districts and places where we could live. And you all know how creative and how powerful we are. And so where we resided in these areas, like, for example, in Chicago, that Bronzeville area is one of the neighborhoods where we resided. Listen, we then established what today is modern day Black history, especially pop culture. Hip hop culture would not even exist were it not for those brothers and sisters who came with their artistic expressions through the Great Migration. But it wasn't just that. There were businesses. We had our own everything from grocery stores to butchers. We had inventors, all of this rich history that because we were so busy trying to integrate and run out to the suburbs, we left the history behind. And we are at risk now of that history potentially becoming extinct. Why? Because of gentrification. People move into houses, they don't know who was there. And of course, this happens all over, but in our community, it's detrimental because we are already up against, right, 4 or 5 centuries of hiding our history from us. And sometimes we wonder why we can't connect to the solution that's given to us by our great leaders like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Marcus Garvey, or Carter G. Woodson. Why can't we connect? It's because we don't know our history. I was listening in that same lecture where the minister said, you know, when you get in trouble and you go see an attorney, what's the first thing they do? They document the history of the situation you came to them about. And in documenting and understanding the history, they can use the history of the law, right? The precedences, the history of the law to design a defense for you. But without that history, they can't design a defense for you. When you go to the doctor, the first thing they do is take a history and physical. So they want to understand what is your history. They ask you sometimes about your mother, your father, different health attributes, mental health, physical health. What is your history? And then they go into the history of medicine and determine a clinical plan for you. But without that history, it's very difficult to diagnose. Same thing in our lives. History is everything. And as the minister said in that lecture, if you got a problem and you can see an autobiography or read a story about somebody who's going through something similar to what you went through, or sometimes all you have to do is just hear about how that person overcame and how they endured or what they went through, whether they won or lost, and it can give you strength. But when you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. Think about it. When you type in your GPS and you say, I want to go so-and-so place, I want to go downtown Chicago, I'm going downtown to get something to eat. Here go the address to the restaurant. The first thing your GPS has to do, and again, the GPS system was invented by a Black woman, but anyway, the first thing your GPS system has to do is what? Determine where you are in order to get you to where you're going. And guess what? You don't even know where you are without knowing where you came from. So you can't even tell the GPS where to take you if you don't even know where you came from, because you can't even assess where you are. That's how important history is. It's real simple. So it's time for us to own and monetize our own history. It's time to stop selling grandma's house. It's time to stop not caring about our family history. And I know a lot of us act so crazy. I mean, some of us are just insane. I mean, I got my fair share of insanity in my own family, especially right now. We're dealing with some serious insanity in my family where just my work and my success has brought demons out of people. People literally losing their mind and being overcome by demons just because of the work that I'm doing. So we all got that. We all can't understand oftentimes why is it that our success brings about insanity. But let me tell you something. We have to stop harming the anointed in our community, which most of the time means each and every one of us. There's an anointing on us. Otherwise, we wouldn't still be here. And that anointing is a protection. And God is not going to tolerate us just, the envy is real. God is not going to tolerate. He ain't going to tolerate too much People fall off curbs every day. Fall off a curb and bust your head and be like, how the person, what happened? Oh, they fell off the curb and bust their head. But really it was because they was going crazy over somebody else being successful. They was jealous and had a problem. You know what? You have to be, I'm so grateful that that kind of germ is not in me. You know, if I see something that somebody's doing that I don't like or I can't take it, I just move around them. I got so much that I'm trying to do and focus on, and I'm so caught up with listening to what Allah wants me to do next and next and next that I ain't got time to be worrying about what nobody's doing. But unfortunately, within our families, we have people who do sit up and worry and stress about what we're doing. So sometimes it's hard to respect the history. And when you don't love yourself, sometimes we throw away our culture. We're so quick to give our culture away. There's so many culture vultures. I was looking at a post that Sister Nilam was showing where she was selling her head wraps, and all of these Asian companies have taken her picture and now they're selling head wraps. Well, everybody wants to know about our culture. And I keep telling y'all, like Tom Burrell said, that we're not just dark-skinned white people. And you don't have to try to be like somebody that you're not. You can still respect white people, Asian people, Indian people, Hispanic people, and still be yourself. And if they don't respect you, then just move around. My point being is that oftentimes we hate ourselves. So when somebody else in our family is doing something great, or when it comes time to look back and document the sojourn of our grandparents and great-grandparents and all those people, because we hate ourselves, that culture reminds us of ourselves. And so we're trying to go so far as we can and be something that we're not. We don't want to be ourselves. So all these other cultures are saying, well, if y'all don't want to be yourselves, then we'll be you. And so you got culture vultures. You got people coming up with software. I won't even say the social media software where all they do is dance and dance like black people and sing like black people and act like black people and do whatever it is that we do, to the point where now they're using computer technology and they think they got us. The chat GPT, the AI, they think they got us. So now they like, we can go ahead and destroy them. We getting ready to destroy the black woman. She done got too big and too bad. And so we getting ready to do what we can to get rid of her. We're going to change the definition of what it means to be a woman. We're going to tell you that you don't own womanhood. And now we're getting ready to break down their families so they really never get together. We have to make sure that we consciously work against the breakdown of our nuclear family. And I would go so far as to say that a lot of times that nuclear family may not be blood, but you still need to be documenting. I'll give you an example. One time I was talking to my cousin. Shout out to my cousin Joiselle. We were talking one day, this was years ago, and we were talking about history. And I think I was telling her about, I've always been into history. My favorite subject in school was world history. But I don't even remember. It was some historical figure, probably like Annie Malone or somebody that I was telling her about. And she said, do you realize how much courage your grandmother had? And I was kind of shocked. And I hadn't really thought about it. And she said she got on the train she got on the train from Louisiana and went up north to Nebraska by herself with $7 in her pocket. $7 was a lot of money in 1945 when she did this. So then I started looking up the trains and the train system and how many stops the train probably made and where they had to sit in the train and how dangerous that was for a very, very attractive young Black woman to get on the train by herself and to travel that far. And I remember her telling me that she just didn't want to be down south no more. She didn't want to raise her children down there. She didn't want to be down there. There was so much perversion and sexual abuse happening down there. She didn't want to be down there no more. She had met my grandfather, and he was from up north. And so she got on a train and came up there to me. She didn't even know him like that. She was riding with his family. They were riding back and forth because there wasn't no phones. Like they could call and say, hey, I'm on my way. So this was all being done via letter. And so this is how these messages are going back and forth. She said that his family asked her, well, how will we know who you are? And she said, I'll be the one with the flower in her hair. And mind you, my grandmother grew up in Creole country, Bayou country. English was not her first language. So she wasn't very good at English at all. And when it came time to reading something, look at God. Just look at God. My mother was always the mouthpiece and would talk for her and help her. Then she has a granddaughter who starts reading at 4, and nobody really taught her how to read. You see how God is with us and how he turned that thing around just by us going through and being courageous, getting somewhere else, and ends up having her children and a granddaughter who start reading at 4, and then nobody had to tell her how to read. You can't tell me that. Listen, I know that there's always a movement to separate the divinity of our divinity from our Blackness, but you can't do it. We are divinely guided people. If we were not divinely guided and protected, we would not still be here. And God does it where it may be a generation next, it may be within that generation. But my cousin said to me, she said, think about the courage. And she and I actually sat on the phone. And I'm grateful to her for this, because she and I sat on the phone and literally just walked through in our minds what it must have been like and how scared she had to be at certain points and how she just kept going. Something was better. They say the only way to your goal is through the fear. You're going to have fear, but you got to be courageous. And so I think about that when I think about some of the work that I'm doing when we're talking about urban historic preservation. And it's scary because I realize that we're unlocking and unleashing demons that have existed within the pockets of this history because of the centuries of trying to keep us down and keep us away, to where a lot of us are just crazy. And I'm sorry to use that word because I know that can be offensive to people, but I don't know any other way to describe it. We're just other than ourselves. I'll say it that way. We're so far away from being other than ourselves that we're savage, living other than ourselves. And so we don't like this type of historic work. Like, it makes people so mad. And I think about it and I say, man, we on to something with this historic preservation, because it's making people pissed. Excuse my language. What are you so pissed off about? I just want to know myself. Why is it a crime for me to know myself? Why is it a crime for me to uplift people who are teaching and training and helping us to be better people? Why is it a crime for me to know about all the Black inventors? And why is it a crime for me to know Black history? And some of y'all may be saying, well, it ain't crime. You can just look it up. Start trying to preserve one of these historic properties, and you'll find out that some people consider that a crime. They let us look in the books now. Used to be where they would hide the books from, but they let us look in the books. You got stuff on Wikipedia. They'll probably have limited stuff in ChatGPT and AI. It'll be limited. But decide you're going to build a museum. Decide you're going to preserve our history, and you're going to uplift people who have made a difference in our community, and watch how people react. And I'm not just talking about white people. Believe it or not, in a lot of cases, white people understand the importance of the history, and they sometimes are willing to help. It's our people who don't want to hear it. I've been called a whore and everything else from people in my family. Why? Because they can't even understand why it's important to dedicate our lives to uplifting our ancestors. And when I tell you that they will stay with you and be with you every step of the way, it's the most rewarding work, because literally you can feel the will of Allah all through the process. It's like I opened up a treasure and Allah was in there, and I get to just live with him every day. It's real talk. But I know it don't make a lot of people happy. And I know a lot of people don't like history. But what I do know is that protective hedge and that fire, you know how when you have the savages, you got to put fire on them and poke the fire at them to back them up. Allah got the fire, but he already knew this. He already saw it. But it's a trial that can either increase your certainty or it can increase your insecurity. And I'm very blessed that the trials and the way folks act have increased my certainty. I know, listen, I'm a businesswoman and I ain't no dummy. I've been in this long enough, in this world long enough to know that when people act like that, it's something on the other side. So we just have to keep going. So I encourage each and every one of you to document your history. Tell the world about your family, your grandparents. Get a notebook and start documenting. And let me just say this to you. When you start to research your family history, be very careful not to make up stuff. Try to be as truthful and honest and honorable by the history as you possibly can. Because see, we haven't been taught how to do this stuff. And most of us have only been taught how to think and live by predatory capitalists and our slave master, whose mindset is still running through the annals of time. So a lot of us still think like them. We're haters like them, like they used to be. The slave master always was hating and jealous and didn't want us doing certain things. He made us hate each other. Light-skinned people don't like the dark-skinned people. The tall people don't like the short people. The old people don't like the young people. Be very careful and intentional about that kind of stuff. And I'm going to say one more other thing as we're researching our history. Be very truthful and be very honorable, and try your best to verify as much as you can before you just accept it for being truth. Even sometimes some of the stories that come down, sometimes people tell enough stories and it gets taken as truthful, but you got to do your research. Let me also say this. Let's be intentional about how we treat one another. And specifically this, if you grown and you got a niece, a nephew, a cousin, or somebody that grows up and is younger than you, don't hate on them. See, I believe that those of us that are older should be counsel and guidance and support for people who are younger. You know how good it feels when somebody who's older than you supports you, and you know that they'll do anything to help you. You may not even ask for no help. Just knowing that they would give of themselves to help you is the certainty that you may need to go solve the problem. So if you're 20 years old and you got a 10-year-old niece, nephew, if you got friends that got a 5-year-old, support them. If you 40 years old and you got 20-year-old niece and nephew, you got a friend that got a 20-year-old, support them. Be there for them. Be an example. If you're 70 years old and you got 40, 50-year-old nieces, nephews, and cousins, don't be an asshole. Support them, because that support is enough to unlock your family treasures. So I make it a point. Any of my friends will tell you, any of them that's in the chat, that if they got, I don't have any children, but if they got children, they tell me it's a graduation. They tell me that the child needs some advice. They going to college or they looking for a job. I do whatever I can to support and help. And I want that child to go into college, for example, knowing that they got a team of people that's behind them and that's supporting them. They don't need us with our grown selves coming against them, dogging them out, talking about them, calling them names. That's so whack. It's so lame and it's so devilish. It's like if you operate like that, you really, really, truly are a savage. So we got to work on that. I know sometimes you meet people, they younger children, you just don't like them. Maybe you don't like their lifestyle, but don't dog them and don't hate on them. Be an example. Try to teach. Be there, reach back. That's generational wealth. But you should never be found hating on somebody that's younger than you like that. See, this is why when people come up and when we're younger, oftentimes we don't look up to older people because they're so busy hating. But all we can do is make sure that we're not like that. And so I've always had a vow. I said, you know what? I said, any young sister, any young brother, any of them that they come up, the students at Muhammad University, if they don't know nothing else, they know Sister Sajda got their back. They know they can call me anytime. They know whatever it is that I can do. And all I ask is that they respect me and respect my process and respect what I'm doing. But I'm going to give them the love and I'm going to pour into them and give them whatever it is that I can give them to help them to be successful. That's part of historic preservation, because you want to preserve the mind of this young person, even if you think that they're making a mistake. It ain't what you do, it's how you do what you do. And guess what? When Allah had to skip over generations to get done what he wanted to get done generations from now, while you sitting up hating on that child or that niece or that nephew, don't think Allah ain't got no time, ain't got a problem with removing you. Don't think it. Don't think he won't remove you if you get in his way. So I'm just saying, let's be better. Let's be responsible. Let's be dignified. Let's be conscious. Let's be of a higher mindset. Let's stop being groveling savages. Let's stop that. If you older, don't be preying on children. I saw a story the other day about some grown-ass woman, excuse my language, having sex with a child, and she was a teacher, and bought the child a gun and all this stuff. Stop it. Just stop it. Whatever you got, you shouldn't be being perverted in the first place, but whatever your perversion is, find somebody grown to do that with, but don't be messing with children. We got to preserve our babies. It's too many of them out here missing. Too many of them out here that don't deserve our neglect. They don't deserve what we're doing. We just got to stop. So I'm gonna get off of it. Let me see what y'all saying. Let's see. Sister Dawn said, "This is excellent guidance for dealing with our families and our histories." Yes, ma'am, Sister Dawn. Um, Shout out to Sister Dawn. Her and her beautiful sons. We did a coaching session the other day, and it was so nice. It was very refreshing. Um, they're twins, and they so cute. Well, I won't say cute. I say I won't use baby language. So handsome and dignified, and they got a new product that I know they're going to be rolling out soon. But yeah, preserve our babies, support, get with your friends and family, and help them in supporting their children and whatever it is that they're doing. Partner with your friends and say, I got you. Let's give these babies some support so that they're not looking out here to the street and looking at pop culture and listening to music lyrics and doing and thinking that that's the gospel. They should be wanting to listen to us. They should be looking up to us. Let's see. Sister Zakia said they let us look in the books now because they started to take over our minds. Yeah, they already know how we're going to interpret it. I see Mom with her prayers and her hearts and emojis. Yes, culture vultures, Brother Robert Epps. You are exactly right. That envy and jealousy, we got to be the only people in our community where our success ignites insanity in some of our family members. You ever go to church and you see those pastors, or you watch it on TV? I grew up in a Catholic church, so we didn't have this, but I've seen it, where the pastor would touch somebody's head, then all of a sudden the demon come out and they start retching around on the floor and cussing and insulting people that ain't got nothing to do with it. That's what it's like. It's like they see what you're doing, they see your success, and then they just start retching around in the floor like they got some kind of demon inside of them. It's really sad. Sandra D, walaikum salam. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Damien X 1929 said, ASA family, just jumping in to give the greetings while at work. I'll have to catch the replay. Yes, sir, Brother Damien. We'll redo it again. Sister Layla Mariam Muhammad said, praise be to Allah. All right. So you all, thank you very much. Welcome. Listen, support the completion of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad House. Our history matters. We got to get to the point. Let me tell you what I want to see. And I pray that I can achieve this in my lifetime. I want to see when people go to the NBA or NFL or NHL or wherever they go, and they start to become successful athletes, successful singers, that it becomes cool to invest your money in preservation. Because that $100,000 watch that you just bought can build a museum, can preserve our legacy. Listen, these people 100 years ago, I always talk about this, y'all. People like J.P. Morgan Chase, got Morgan Stanley and Chase, you got Goodyear, you got the Heinz, you got the Crafts, you got all of these people who built these companies 100 years ago, and they still are in effect to this day. We still eating the food, we still shopping and banking with them. This is the kind of legacy. It's going to take a level of consciousness for us to do this, but it's also going to take us to understand the science of business. And we're going to be doing a series on that very, very soon, to just talk about that. I've been studying this now deeply for years. And so some of that knowledge I don't even talk about, but we're going to share some of that. But I want you to think about, how do you make whatever company you're starting last 100 years so that your great, 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 great grandchildren can benefit? We're gonna start talking about that. Now, that's some estate planning for you. It's one thing to do an insurance policy and leave your child $250,000. It's another thing to say 100 years from now, my company is still going to be standing. 100 years from now, my nieces, my nephews, my children going to eat off of my efforts. That's real transference of generational wealth right there. I think sometimes we get caught up because when we don't teach our children certain principles and the value of education, then whatever we leave them is going to be gone in a generation. Something to think about. All right, family. So you can Cash App us, $Mode today. You can get your sponsorship. Y'all know all of that. Y'all ready to go? And guess what? If you're listening and you say, you know what, I can't really participate in any preservation right now, you can tell somebody. You can call somebody and say, hey, you know what? It's time for us to own and monetize our own history. Let's make it hip. Let's make it cool. Let's make it sexy to be a preservationist. Instead of being ratchet and twerking, let's figure out how we can preserve legacies. And so that's one of the things I'm working on. So thank you for listening to my my new business. I see Sister Aletha said, peace, everyone. That's true foundational legacy planning. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. We're talking going beyond these little insurance policies. I'm talking about generations from now. What's your family name going to look like? 100 years from now, what are they going to say when they say Sajda, Wendy, Muhammad? I was up today studying about Herod thousands of years ago. I think he was born like 94 BC or something like that. So come on, y'all. Let's do better. Let's be intentional. Let's change the narrative. We can do it. We got the divine intervention that's ready to just bless us. Let's give them something to bless. All right, family. Let's see. I'm gonna show y'all a few commercials so y'all know what I mean. Don't go nowhere. And we'll be back Saturday. I haven't decided if we're gonna do another Woman of the Bible series or if we're gonna another episode of the Woman of the Bible, or if we're going to take a break and just have a little conversation. Y'all let me know. Hit me up on social media and let me know what y'all want to do. Y'all want to talk about the Women of the Bible again, or y'all ready to move on to something else, or you just want to take a break? Let me know. All right. Peace and blessings, family. Greetings, conscious entrepreneurs. Add the Mind of an Entrepreneur show to your Roku TV lineup and catch up on past episodes of all your favorite Mode Today shows.